Everybody say hi, John.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Everybody say hi, Rosa.
Hi, Rosa.
And I'm also recording this for Luis from my other class, so say hi, Luis.
Hi, Luis.
All right. So let's talk two-dimensional arrays. Okay. So have y'all started to kind of scroll through this and see what they are?
Mm-hmm.
Basically a table. Okay. So it's an XY grid. They sound really kind of scary, two-dimensional arrays, but they're not that much. So glancing through real quick, what is a 2D array? It's a table of values. We identify it with the grid. We've got rows and we have columns. Like all things computer science, we start counting at
Rows.
0.
Zero.
You are both correct. We mentioned the rows first, which is what you said, Roth, and we start counting them by 0, like Alex said. So how do you access a given cell or a location or whatever? You just have the array name, and then you've got two sets of brackets. The first bracket is going to be the row number, and the second bracket is the column number. The way that you can remember that rows come before columns is by remembering RC Cola. Rows, columns, cola. Oh, sorry. Royal Crown Cola. Have you ever had RC Cola? No?
Mm-hmm.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, I have. It's been a long time. Somebody more recently in my other class had said they had it, and I said, well, what do you remember that it tastes like? And they said, it tastes like a bootleg Coca-Cola. And that's about what I remember. So, anyway, here is a two-dimensional array with some values in it. And you can see this is the Java code that you would use to access it. You'd say scores 0, 0 equals 50. That would store the value of 50 in that particular cell. Scores 0, 1 equals 100 would put it in row 0, column 1, and put the value of 100. And so on and so forth. Any questions? So just that, if you understood that part right here, that little box, then this next one really makes, I mean, it's just a repetition, so to speak. How do you change the value? Well, you just write the array name and then the row and the column, and then you put whatever value you want to be put in there. How do you print it out? Whatever's in one of those cells? Well, you just say system.out.println, and then the array name, and then the row and the column, and that's how you access it.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay, so you know the first one you have to initialize is going to be what makes the whole graph?
The first line?
Yes, the first line.
Yes.
Like that one right there is 4, 4.
Mm-hmm.
What if for the next one you put something else outside of those numbers?
Okay. So your question is, what if you initialize the array, the 2D array, to be a 4x4 grid, but then you put in like 5, 6? Then do you remember what would happen if you did that with just a one-dimensional array?
It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work. It would throw you a red lines error, array index out of bounds exception, and that's what will happen too. Yep. So this is how you declare it. It's just kind of like what you might expect. Instead of, for a one-dimensional array, we had one set of square brackets. Now we have two sets. And then you have two sets over here where you declare the rows and the columns. This happens to be a 4x4, which I did a screenshot of some other computer science teacher who had really nice graphics, but I think it was kind of not good because they have like 4x4, and it makes you think that everything's like the same. Like the rows and columns have to be the same. Your 2D array has to be a square grid, and it does not. It could be 2 rows and 7 columns, or 5 rows and 3 columns. It can be any rectangular shape, and it can even be some weirder stuff, which we'll talk about tomorrow. So I guess I could change this. This is a 3x3, but I just used that because I wanted to show you this is the code that you would implement to create that guy up there. Here are some other code examples of two-dimensional arrays with, different numbers for the rows and columns. So this is a two-dimensional array of double values. Okay, and the name, double distances equals new distance. Oh, that's a typo. Equals new double. 2, 5. This is going to create a two-dimensional array, 2 rows, 5 columns. And what's going to go inside each one of those cells? What type of information?
Double.
A double. This one right here is a two-dimensional array of Boolean values. So this would be like true, 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 false, true, false, true, true, false, false, true, false, something like that. This is going to be 7 rows, 6 columns. So now you might ask, well, can we create a two-dimensional array with an initializer list? And the answer is
Yes.
yes, you can. You say int, and then bracket, 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 bracket. So there it is right there. And then notice we have an open squiggle bracket right here and a closed one at the end. And so it's very much like an array, but look what's inside each part. So we have like another squiggle bracket and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. That's going to, and then there's a comma, and then squiggle bracket 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, comma, squiggle bracket. See what I'm saying? So now each one of those corresponds to a row. So that's how you would set that up. This code right here is going to create this two-dimensional array. Notice once again you've got that extra squiggle bracket those around all of it to say this is our two-dimensional array, and here's row 0, here's row 1, so on and so forth. And commas separate each one of those. I've got these set up on different lines. I mean, we could have this all on one line and it would just kick way long over here, but remember Java doesn't really care about the white space. And if you set it up like this, it makes it a little bit more obvious kind of what you're doing. Okay, any questions?
How would you print it? Would it?
We're gonna get there.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Before we get to printing, I want to talk about initializing some more. Okay, how to set it up, modify it, then we'll go to printing, because that's normally one of the last things you would do. Why not? We'll skip on down. We'll keep the original order. How do we initialize a 2D array with for loops? The answer is you can't do it with just one for loop, okay? Because you've got to have things that are changing. You have to have the row number changing and you have to have the column number changing. So that the solution is a loop inside a loop. This is also known as nested loops, so that they're nesting inside each other. The outer loop goes through each row and the inner loop walks through each column. This code right down here is going to create a 2D array called table, 3 rows and 4 columns, then sets every cell in that table to 42. You couldn't just say int bracket bracket table equals new int, 3, 4 equals 42. That's not going to work. Okay, you have to set it up like this. It is helpful to run a trace of this on paper. We're going to write it up here. So this is going to create an array called table. It's got 3 rows. I'll put the indices on the end here, 0, and then 4 columns. And then we have the outer loop. Now notice, what letter am I using for our counter on the outer loop?
Rows.
Yeah, R for rows. And on this inner loop, what letter am I using?
C.
Yeah, not using I's, okay? Normally with these, it's easier to use R's and C's. Sometimes you have people use I and J, and we might switch over to that here in a bit. But R and C are sort of standard, okay? So R starts off at what value, Raf?
3.
No.
Oh, 42?
Nope.
0.
R starts off at 0.
Oops.
So R is 0. And then we go into the loop. And inside the loop, we create a variable called C and set that one equal to 0. And then at position RC, we put the value 42. So at 0, 0, we put 42. Then we loop back up inside this loop. The way this is going to go, it's going to go like here, and then vroom, 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 out to the big loop again. Vroom, 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 out to the big loop again. Vroom, vroom, vroom. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what's going on here, except for the vrooms. All right. So then we have C gets bumped up. C is now equal to 1. And we set position row 0, column 1. Row 0, column 1. Set it to 42. Vroom. C gets bumped up to 2. Row 0, column 2. Vroom. Row 0, column 3. Vroom. We're at 4. Notice we're only looping while C is less than 4. So we are finished with the inner loop. And so then up, we're now at the bottom of the outer loop, and we come back up, and we have R++. So R is going to get bumped up to 1. When I do my trace like this, I cross out and I put the 1 right down here. So that way it's kind of easier for me to see what's going on. Now, at that point, we've looped back up. R is now 1. It's still less than 3, so we're good, right? And now C is going to get set to what value, gentlemen? Just make a guess, or look at the code.
0.
It's back to 0. Absolutely right, because we now have C equals 0 again. And we're going to go to row 0, column 1. Or sorry, row 1, column 0. Vroom. Column gets bumped up. Row 1, column 1. Row 1, column 2. 1, 3. When we hit 4, we kick out of that inner loop. Go back up to the top. Row then turns into 2. Column resets to 0. 2, 0. 2, 1. 2, 2. 2, 3. 2, 4. We kick out. This goes to 3. But notice we're only looping while R is less than 3. So at that point we kick out and we're done. So this is very helpful to kind of see. We get, like, this is why I say the outer loop deals with the rows. So the outer loop does row 0, row 1, row 2. And the inner loop goes boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Okay? This is called row major order, in case you're curious. So that's how you can set up those values. You guys, y'all have a question or anything? Okay, we're good. Now, this question that I have next here is almost kind of a silly question. It says, how do I change all the values? And the answer is exactly like what you did up there. Use nested for loops. All right? That's exactly what we did earlier. You just say from R equals 0 to 3, C equals 0 to 4, and then you set the values to whatever you want it to be. Okay? So that's how you would change the values. I mean, it's really not any different from what's going on up here, where the only difference is as soon as you create the two-dimensional array of integers, they're all 0. This right here is going to fill it up with 42s. Then this code right here is going to turn everything to 86s, whatever they happen to be.
So the only way to change them into specific numbers would be in the initializer list?
No, you could have, if you wanted to change a specific one, you could say table 2, 1 equals 15.
Oh, okay.
You could do it manually if you wanted it to be something particular. You could have it equal. So you could have like a double for loop, and you could get something really interesting, where you could say like table RC equals R plus C. Think about what that would look like. Where what that means is the cell value would equal the sum of the row number and the column number.
Oh, okay.
So this cell would equal 0 plus 0. This cell would be 0 plus 1. This cell would be, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So 2, 3, 1, 2, 0.
Yeah.
Pretty neat. So you could that would give. In fact, what would that do?
It multiply them together.
Yep. Which by an alternate name, that two-dimensional array would look like something that you have experience with maybe in your past.
Multiplication table?
Yeah, it'd be a multiplication table. In fact, this with the plus is called it's your sum table. Sum table. Anyway, different table. Yeah, you can have all kinds of stuff like that. But we're going to not let anybody else know that because that sounds like a good programming assignment. Wink, wink. Now for Raf's question, great question. How do I print out the values in a 2D array? And once again, the answer is with nested for loops. You normally want the printout to resemble a table, and so you want the row to print out on a single line, and you'll do that with a print statement. So you'll say like print, 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 print line, print, 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 print line. You see what I'm saying? And so then you use print line to go to the next line. So that's what this code right here does. It's exactly the same type of thing. R equals 0 less than 3, R equals 0 less than 4, and then you just have system.out.println RC and then plus a blank space. If you copy this code and paste it into yours, make sure you fix it because those double quotes really aren't. There are some weird symbols and stuff like that. So notice I have a print statement right here so that it, like I said, it prints out one right after another all in the same line. And then once I've finished printing that entire row, I do a print line which forces the cursor now to the next line. And so when we loop back up and we're doing these prints, it's going to be A6, 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 A6. Does that make sense? Okay. So it looks like a lot, but it's really not. I just want to try to get a lot of stuff in here. So it says, here are your tasks. Declare a 2D array of doubles named temps, 4 by 3. Then change 2 of the values and print them out. I think that kind of relates to the question you were asking about, right? So do that by hand. Then print out the entire temps array in a neat format. I think you've got a good example of that up there. Declare a 2D array of ints with an initializer list. Anyway, print them out, change the values, print out the new values. And then I want a 2D array of strings named seating chart, since that's kind of the thing that you would use. You can choose the dimensions and then print out seating chart. So kind of getting used to different formats of our different types. Okay? So Alex, what's something you learned about from this discussion here?
Well, how to make 2D arrays.
Sounds good. Ralph, how about you?
What did I learn?
Yes.
I also learned how to make 2D arrays as well as print them. Same thing, basically.
Okay.
Yep. All right. That's good. What did you learn?
Please like and